Lifelight is a technology that uses the built-in camera on any smartphone device to measure a person's vital signs. So using computer vision in a way that's analogous to, based on the science of what's called PPG, which you'd find in any pulse oximeter, we're able to, instead of looking at light shone through a finger, we look at reflected ambient light from a user's face. And there's a tiny component of that light, around 1 or 2%, which carries your pulsatile signal, so your blood volume pulse. What that basically means is everyone has a micro blush with every pulse beat. And although it's not detectable by the human eye, the sophistication of technology now, the camera in your smartphone in your pocket is able to detect that pulse beat. So our science basically extracts that information and then translates that into pulse, respiration, blood pressure, and oxygen saturation information. So simply by looking into your phone for 40 seconds, we're able to take those 4 measurements with medical grade accuracy. The hope of being able to monitor people continuously was always hampered by the need for lots of equipment, not only from the cost point of view, but also just the hassle, the user friction in terms of having to stick a blood pressure cuff on every morning, take a measurement. And so telehealth services were founded where you had call centers having to nag people, call them every morning and say, you still haven't taken your readings, you know, and I was always looking for, there has to be a better way to do this. There's got to be some form of tech that's going to make this so passive that it can happen automatically without us really needing prompting. I spent some time out in Boston and was really kind of looking at building something in the East Coast US market for this tech. And then I realized, of course, I didn't have any contacts, didn't know anybody, there was no network. And I thought, well, I've got my background with the NHS and the network of people I've worked with previously. So the logical thing was to come back to the UK, let's really focus on making the most of networking. And that was when I first engaged with the HSN. So yeah, that was back in 2014. But what that allowed was the kind of connections to the local health and care system in Wessex for us to look for trial opportunities, to collect the data that we needed. One of the critical things with this technology, there's the initial wow factor. And then when you show it to any clinician, they will say, does this work with sick people? And you go, probably. Well, that's no good. You know, we need evidence. We need, as we learned, we had to train the algorithms specifically on people who are sick or deteriorating in order for it to recognize those conditions later on. So the need for data, this tech is really thirsty for high quality clinical data. And so that was really our kind of next mission, was how do we find that and how can we fund that? So both of those led to the AHSN in terms of finding really good partners and also support with grant applications, really targeted around clinical trials. And that formed the basis of our SBRI, our £1 million SBRI grants that we successfully won. SBRI needs a very clear clinical use case and a health economic story, if you like, to say what's the value to the NHS? How is this going to help healthcare? And for that side of it, we looked at primary care. So again, the AHSN helped us with building a great network of GP enthusiasts who were able to help us to co-design this, to think through the use cases. How can it be helpful? Where would it save time? Where can it save lives or improve outcomes? We also went through an entrepreneurial program that was supported by the AHSN as well, which was really helpful. So although in spite of being an MBA by background and having run businesses for at least 10 years at that stage, there was so much still to learn in terms of the specifics of med tech development, design, the regulatory context, and just being really well focused on the use cases that we need to develop and how we could work in an agile way with something that is a long and slow process that needs validation and so on. So there was that element of support as well, which has been really valuable to us. There was one further study, which was Portsmouth University did a validation study for us. So what we needed there was a sports science department. And Portsmouth, with its maritime connections, has what's called a normobaric chamber. So they're able to simulate different pressures and altitudes. And we were able to use that to perform some lab-based testing to get things like very low oxygen saturations from student volunteers. So again, that was so academic links as well as the health and care system connections have been really important. Suddenly the world changed. So this kind of technology that's on the roadmap that everyone was keen to explore suddenly became, we need it yesterday. You know, we are no longer doing face-to-face consultations, but doing remote consultations. We've no idea of the patient's oxygen sats. We don't know what their blood pressure is, and so this need for contactless and remote vital signs became urgent. And again, I think thanks to the broader networking of the AHSM, we had some really good connections with NHSX. And we've also worked with the wider AHSN network over the years as well, through those introductions. So when the time was right, people knew who to call. So we had calls, we've had conversations, and we worked up a model where we could provide a staged program of providing Lifelight to support initially primary care interventions. That's kind of morphed into care home support, and which is where we worked as well with in partnership with Hampshire Hospitals Foundation Trust, who also had been talking to us around remote monitoring of care homes. So all of these kind of threads fitted together really in terms of the pressures of the pandemic. And although it's fair to say with the challenges of the pandemic, we were working as fast as we could, but we also had still to honor regulatory requirements. We had to build test cases, perform validation, and so on. So things didn't move as fast as we would have really liked, but it gave certainly some rocket fuel to all parties involved to really push the opportunity for remote vital sign monitoring through cameras. There are two sides to regulatory. One is it's expensive and it takes time. The other is it's an entry barrier. So we are seeing new entrants now coming into our space inevitably. When you've got a technology that has such potential, there are going to be other people working on that technology. And because we started this journey in 2014, we've got 2 patents under our belts. We've got the data that we've already collected. We're embarking on another study, thanks to winning an AI award last year. It's so easy to forget the challenges we had pre-COVID with any form of digital innovation, which are user acceptance. You know, the old issues of changing pathways in healthcare is notoriously difficult. And so we bumped up against this a number of times where we're introducing this kind of, you know, camera-based vital signs tech, and then we find our partners are facing the basic challenges of implementing, you know, getting people to do things remotely, changing working practice, changing clinical pathways. That is still really the big kind of impediment to adoption. Really, it comes down to people, both in terms of patients as well as clinicians. Clinicians have had to make huge changes to their working practice through COVID, and so, you know, there's a little bit of kind of just needing to pause and reflect and say what was good from these new changes, what can we carry forward in the new normal. So we need to respect that there's been a lot of change in a very short period of time. And so as innovators, we just need to make sure we are part of the solution, not part of the problem, bringing yet another piece of change and disruption. I think in terms of advice, things always take a lot longer than you expect. And no matter how many people tell you that, as an entrepreneur, you have that natural optimism. Otherwise, you wouldn't be an entrepreneur in the first place. So it's a sense of realism and a sense of understanding that these processes always take longer. We feel we've done the hard work going through the validation medical route, which now is opening doors in some of these other sectors, which is really exciting. Stay laser focused, don't get distracted. It's very easy to find lots of ways to pivot, but you need a strategy behind that. It shouldn't just be a wild kind of reactive, oh, there's a good opportunity, let's go and do that instead. Stick to a strategy, have a vision,